Good morning and welcome to our Judicial Candidates Forum. My name is Charles House, and before I begin, I want to make a couple of introductions. First, Kimmy Bonner, would you please stand up? She's the wife of our moderator, Judge Robert Bonner. And you'll notice that my name says Charles House, co-organizer. I'm not the co-organizer. I do what my wife tells me to do. Martha conceived the idea of having judicial candidate forums in 1994, and we started in our backyard. And we've had them from 1994 to the present. They've been very, very successful. They've been very well organized. And Martha has been up shedding blood, sweat, and tears for the past few weeks, getting this all, making sure that everything is together. But that's what she does. She gets involved and puts other people ahead of her. So would you give her a hand? Martha House. She's the one that did all this. Our judicial candidate forums have been very, very successful. And they've been very successful because of this man here to my right, Robert Bonner. He's a sought-after speaker and a longtime dear friend. Let me just give you a little bit of background on Robert Bonner. Robert Bonner, now retired, is a former partner of the law firm Gibson, Dunn, and Crotcher. However, he continues to be counsel to that firm. He's also senior principal of the Sentinel HS Group, a global security firm that specializes in providing strategic advice and counsel regarding homeland security, customs and international trade, border security matters, and law enforcement issues. Mr. Bonner served as commissioner of the U.S. Customs Service. Then, as a result of reorganization of the Homeland Security Department, he became first commissioner of U.S. Customs and Border Protection. From 1990 to 1993, prior to Mr. Bonner's appointment to be commissioner, he serves as administrator of the Drug Enforcement Administration. Mr. Bonner is a member and former chair of the Commission on Judicial Performance. This commission investigates and adjudicates judicial misconduct in California. From 1989 to 1990, he served as U.S. District Judge in the Central District of California. From 1994 to 1988, he served as U.S. Attorney for the Central District of California. And before that, he was Assistant U.S. Attorney in the Criminal Division of that office. Mr. Bonner is a fellow of the American College of Trial Lawyers. He graduated from Georgetown Law School in 1966. Mr. Bonner serves as chair of the California Institute of Technology's Audit and Compliance Committee and serves as a trustee there. Mr. Bonner is also chairman of the Civilian Oversight Commission for the finest law enforcement agency in the world, the LA County Sheriff's Department. Let's give a warm welcome to Judge Bonner.
Thank you, Charles, for that thorough introduction. I want to welcome everybody to this judicial forum. I want to welcome the candidates, interested citizens, any media we might have here. I think perhaps the Daily Journal is covering, the LA Daily Journal is covering this. Thank you all for being here. I'm delighted once again to moderate this forum of candidates seeking election to judicial office, especially and specifically seeking the office of Los Angeles County Superior Court Judge. They're seeking to be elected to that office, which is, I think most of you know, the Los Angeles County Superior Court is the largest and surely one of the most important trial courts of our nation. One of the best, most interesting jobs that I've ever held, and as Charles noted, I held a few, was that of being a judge. I can tell you that one of the most important public service jobs in our government is being a judge, being the person who represents and is the very embodiment of justice in our government. It's a privilege and it's a trust to be a judge. This is not a position that these candidates take lightly, and frankly, all these candidates that are before you now aspire to this position, to be a Los Angeles County Superior Court judge, except for one, and that's Judge Mackey, who is already a Los Angeles County Superior Court judge. You know, frankly, I don't know whether electing judges is such a good idea, but it is our system here in California for the trial court. When there's an open seat or when someone challenges an incumbent judge. But I'll tell you this, since the public is electing judges, it's extraordinarily important that the voting public knows something as much as possible about who they are electing. And sadly, this is usually not the case. While there's almost always some media coverage for elected political offices in our state, there is seldom media coverage or much media coverage for judicial offices. Not only is there very little media coverage, but other than this forum organized by the houses, I know of no forums for debate or discussion among the candidates for these very important judicial offices. Many people have come to me over the years, I guess because I'm a lawyer and a former judge, and they've asked, who should I vote for of these judicial candidates? Most have no idea whatsoever who the candidates for judgeships are, much less how they should evaluate them. And that's why I particularly applaud Martha and Charles House, who started this forum to help fill this gap 18 years ago. And we should all thank them and give them a round of applause. As Charles House mentioned, I'm going to call on each candidate who is with us to make a succinct statement, or to make their case, if you will, as to why he or she is qualified to be a Superior Court judge and would make a good judge. Given the number of candidates that are with us today, I'm going to ask each of the candidates here to limit their remarks, their opening remarks, to no more than 5 minutes. 5 minutes or less. So we can complete this program today. Then, after all the candidates have made their opening statements, if you will, I will open it up for questions from the audience. As a moderator, I may have a question or two myself just to get things started. So that's the procedure. What qualities should we be looking for in judicial candidates? Well, here are the 5 ones, in my opinion, that are the top 5. 1 is good judicial temperament. 2, intelligence, someone who is learned in the law. 3, decisiveness, the ability to decide issues and cases. 4th, the ability to listen and communicate. And 5th, incorruptibility, because in the judgeship, character matters. Just before we get started, I've been handed a note. I want to introduce a few people that are in the audience that should be introduced here. And if you just hold your applause, there are about, I think, 4 or 5, and I'm sure I'm going to miss someone. But first of all, we have the mayor of Whittier here, Joe Vintieri. Okay, Joe's over there. Okay. All right. So, you know, I was a judge. I said, hold the applause. But, okay, you guys, I don't have the gavel or the robes. This is... Judge Rolf Troy, of course, is here. There's Judge Troy. Hold your applause. Superior Court Judge Carol Nahara. There she is up there. Hold your applause. We have a Board of Trustees for Mount Sac College, Judy Chen Haggerty. Judy, there she is. And we have from the Roland Unified School District, Lynn Ebenkamp. Lynn, where are you? Oh, there she is. Okay. And lastly, LA County Commission Tax Appeals Board. Is that I'm going to pronounce the last name, but be Kleinfeld. Thank you. Ken Klein. There she is. Jerry, okay. Well, Anna Marie Luna. Anna Marie Luna. Yes, Your Honor. Good to see you here. Well, we've got a good group of judges here. All right. So, Pat Connolly. Where's Judge Connolly? Well, way up there. Okay. Well, this is probably our best turnout ever from the judges who are not running for office. Yeah. Ted, hey Ted, how are you? Okay, now you can applaud. Okay. So we have, I believe, 23 candidates with us this morning who are running for one of 11 contested judicial offices. 10 of these judicial offices are what are called open seats, means anybody can file their papers and run for them. Pretty much what it means. And one of these 11 is an office that has a sitting incumbent judge who is being challenged. So I'm going to start actually with that office, which I believe is number 60. Is that number 63, Judge? Okay, number 63. I'm going to start with it. And the incumbent judge for judicial office number 63 is the Honorable Malcolm Mackey. Judge Mackey was elected, okay, but he has served as a Los Angeles County Superior Court judge for over 39 years. He has been rated by the LA County Bar Association, and he's the only candidate here that's been so rated as exceptionally well qualified to be a Superior Court judge. Not surprisingly, because he's a very good judge. So I'm gonna start with the Honorable Malcolm Mackey, and Judge Mackey, you have 5 minutes to tell us why you should be reelected. If anybody wants to sit, I'll bring the mic to them, but
Good morning, everyone. Let me tell you about my background. Superior Court judge, 39 years. I haven't had an election since 1988. I was first elected in 1978 out of 17 candidates, so I know the electoral process. I sit downtown in what's known as civil cases, and I hear I carry about 500 cases. I get about 30 new cases every month, 30, 35 cases. So I'm busy handling cases. I've been doing that for civil cases for the last 18 years. I've done criminal, capital punishment cases, the murders and everything in the system. So I feel I'm well qualified. I was thinking of retiring this time. You know, it was time to retire. People said, Mackey, don't retire. You know, no one's going to file against you. Just run again. I mean, that was, and then boom, all of a sudden I'm here. So I have to fight to get the word out. I have support of the judges. The LA judges are upset that someone filed against me. Someone filed in San Francisco. 5 judges are filed against. I have to make decisions. I'm dealing with millions of dollars of money. And if you decide, in the case my opponent attacks me, I have to decide on the facts of the case. And if my opponent would read the facts of the case, you'll see that I have all I did was grant a new trial in 2 cases. And my opponent uses that against me. There's a Again, the evaluation of the county committee of the County Bar Association is detailed. They go into your background as a commission. Have you done anything to that the Judicial Commission would sanction you for? Nothing. So I have a good record. The Code of Fair Campaign Practices said, I shall not use character defamation, whispering campaigns, libel, slander, or spurious attacks on any candidate. And this is what I get, some spurious attacks. So I want your support. And we need judges who are willing to make decisions. The discrimination is terrible, but falsely labeling judges with no adequate evidence, who must make tough calls. I have to make tough calls. And that's what I'm elected for. That's why I'm there for, to make the tough calls. I did make the tough calls. So I need your support. I have a campaign manager. You want to know more about me? I have a website. Today you have to have a website. You have to have a campaign manager. I have that. It's MackeyForJudge.com. So if you want to check all the endorsements, and I have a slew of endorsements, judges, in fact, Judge Chin, Judge Moreno, justices of the Supreme Court, judges of the Appellate Court, all the judges, over 100, 150 judges of the LA Superior Court are supporting me. Why? Because I've made a good record. I'm out there fighting for you and to avoid problems. The motive is to intimidate or refrain judges from dismissing or reducing meritless cases. I don't have the problem. I have to make the decision. Sometimes it's not popular, but I will make those decisions because I'm representing the people out there. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. Judge Mackey's opponent is a lawyer named Anthony Lewis. Is Mr. Lewis here? Well, that kind of speaks volumes, I think, in its own right, that he did not even show up to tell us why he should replace his very distinguished Superior Court judge, Judge Mackey. I don't usually endorse judicial candidates, by the way, certainly not at this forum, but I'm going to here and now endorse Judge Mackey, and you should tell your friends and neighbors that they should vote for Judge Mackey's reelection to the Los Angeles County Superior Court. So, Judge, you can include me in your endorsers. Okay. Now, let me turn to the next office. By the way, the 10 other offices that are open seats, each one of them has 2 to 3 candidates that have signed up for to run for these offices. And I'm going to start with the Judicial Office number 67. And let's start with, I believe she's here. Let me just look at my list. Yes, Maria Lucy Armendariz. She's not here. Okay, so I have her down as going to attend, so she may show up later. We also have, for office number 67, I'm going to guess that she's here, but maybe she isn't, Onika Valle-Cole. Is Ms. Cole here? There we go. And I might note, Ms. Cole, because you should address it, and this is your opportunity to do so, but the LA County Bar Association, their Judicial Evaluation Committee, has rated these candidates everything from exceptionally well qualified to qualified to not qualified. And there are a number of candidates that they rated not qualified. And one of them is you. So you need to address that as part of your 5 minutes. So the podium is yours.
Thank you so much, Your Honor. Good morning. I'm a little vertically challenged here, so I'm going to adjust this microphone. First of all, I want to thank everyone for being here. I was here in 2016 seeking election, and I'm back seeking election. And I want to tell you a little bit about my background and to respond to the question that Judge Bonner appropriately raised. And I thank him for the question about my rating recently from the Judicial Evaluation Committee rating me as not qualified. In 2016, I was rated qualified. But I want to tell you a little bit about my background and why I am not surprised that now that I have two opponents, one of whom is a political insider, and my background as a prosecutor taking on everybody and political corruption and the lack of integrity wherever I may find it, that my rating has changed. As some of you may recall, I am a biracial child. I'm a black woman, a Latina. English is my second language. My father's dream was to provide low-cost medical care to those who could not afford it. He went to medical school. My family resided in Tijuana, where I learned to speak both English and Spanish, and I went to school. Eventually, my father graduated from medical school and opened up a clinic in San Diego, California. Because we were running a small business, we all had jobs. My father's job was to be the doctor. My job was to be the bookkeeper. At age 7, I learned to sign my name in cursive, and I wrote checks to my brothers, my parents, for their pay in our small business. My older brother's job then was to paint over the graffiti that was regularly painted on my dad's medical clinic. The Logan Heights gang did not have free reign, nor did the Shelltown gang, because everyone understood that my father's medical clinic was the most important business in that community because it saved lives. My family taught me how to work hard and to face bullies wherever I would find them. And that is what I've been doing my entire life. I went off to Yale. I graduated as valedictorian of my high school class and most likely to succeed. And I earned my place at Yale. And I earned my degree because I worked 3 jobs to put myself through college. Back then we had something called work study. So I worked and I studied. When someone told me no, I made yes the answer. When I was told a woman could not compete with the other students from private schools in sciences, I proved them wrong by graduating with a degree in molecular biophysics and biochemistry. I went to medical school in San Diego and I realized that I love science and I love people, but I needed to follow my dream, which was to go to school and become a lawyer. I left medical school and I went to Loyola Law School. And my father, he was angry with me because I chose to do what I wanted to do. I became a Loyola Scholar. That's a full tuition scholarship at Loyola Law School right here in LA. And then I went to work. I worked in the private sector, and I've done much of civil litigation experience in that short 4 years because I was tasked with a Northridge earthquake case. I've taken hundreds of depositions. I've defended them. I've prepared experts. I went to the Los Angeles City Attorney's Office where I spent 16 years fighting for justice. And my materials here on both sides outlines my experience as a prosecutor. But in the last 2 years, I've particularly had to take on some cases that have put me both in the limelight and the target of people within my own office who didn't like what I was doing. See, I think crime is a nonpartisan issue, and I think justice is also a nonpartisan issue. I prosecuted Evelyn Balver. She defrauded immigrants and clogged our system with meritless immigration petitions. She stole from the very people she claimed she was trying to protect. I prosecuted Gloria Salcido. I had 30 undocumented immigrants come to court to seek justice. I prosecuted Richard Cedillo, that is the brother of Gil Cedillo. for elder abuse. I believe that's my time. I'm independent, I'm fair, I am smart, and I will work for justice. Thank you.
There's one other candidate for office number 67, that's Dennis Vincent, and I don't believe he's here. So we'll move on to office number 71, and we'll start with David Berger, if he's here. David? And David, just in fairness, I mean, I don't know what the County Bar Association is doing here, but also they've rated Mr. Berger, who's a lawyer, as not qualified, so you need to address that. This is your opportunity to address that.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you all for being here this morning. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. House, for making this possible. As you can already gather from listening to me, I'm not from these here parts. I'm from England. I studied law in London, at the University of London. There, can you hear me now? Great. And then I moved to Los Angeles, emigrated here, and studied law again, and got my JD from Loyola University. I grew up with an aspiration to be a lawyer. My influences were Rumpole of the Bailey from the UK and Perry Mason from America. And they were two powerful forces because both fought for justice. And fighting for justice is what I've been doing for the last 22 years, in having dedicated my career to public service as a Deputy District Attorney for the County of Los Angeles. And it's also not my first rodeo. As some of you might recall, I was here 2 years ago also running for judge, and I almost made it. I lost by just 3 points. 1.3 million people did vote for me, and I hope that my name recognition carries me through in this election cycle so I can fulfill my dream and continue public service by being a judge of the Superior Court, which I am qualified for. Let's talk about the county bar for one moment, but not too much. It's a club. It's not the state bar. Okay? It's a club, and like all clubs, there are biases, there are prejudices, and I took no part in their evaluation process for that very reason. I am qualified according to the state bar, as is everybody else on this side of the room here, because we have been attorneys for more than 10 years. In 2016, I had the endorsement of Los Angeles Times, District Attorney Jackie Lacey. I have the endorsement now of the District Attorney, former District Attorney Steve Cooley and Robert Philibosian. Over 100 judges, defense attorneys, and prosecutors have said they want me to be a judge. I'm endorsed by the ALADS, which is the Association of Los Angeles Deputy Sheriffs, the PPOA, the Professional Peace Officers Association, LAPPL, Los Angeles Police Protective League, the Police Chiefs Association. I suppose in some ways you could say I am law enforcement's choice for office number 71. And I hope I will be your choice too. Thank you for your time and attention this morning. And I'm not going to use all my time. I will cede it to my opponent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berger. And now the other candidate for judicial office number 71 is Danielle Gibbons, who is a Los Angeles County Superior Court Commissioner. Is Commissioner Gibbons here? I might note that Commissioner Gibbons has been rated well qualified by the LA County Bar Association's Judicial Evaluation Committee. Commissioner Gibbons.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday morning to come here and learn about us. Not a lot of people are doing that, and we're running around with our heads chopped off trying to introduce ourselves to as many people as we can. So thank you for taking the time to learn about us. I am very proud that I have been rated well qualified by the Los Angeles County Bar Association. Their committee actually consists of approximately 30 individuals from varying backgrounds: civil law, prosecutors, defense attorneys, etc. And there's a rigorous application process, interview process, and they rate the individuals as they rate them. I also went through a similar process about 3 years ago when I applied to become a Superior Court Commissioner. Over 400 attorneys applied for this position. At the end of the application and interview process, I was ranked number 15. I was subsequently elected by my now colleagues, the Superior Court judges of Los Angeles County, where I sit in a family law assignment. But it's a special family law assignment. It's the Domestic Violence Prevention Act Restraining Order Court. 90% of what I do are domestic violence related cases, whether it's a dating relationship, a former dating relationship, or elder abuse. All of that falls underneath domestic violence. And of those individuals that I see in my court on a daily basis, most of them never call the police. We are that first line of defense for these individuals who are being harmed. And I'm proud that I can have an effect on a daily basis helping to protect people. And Mayor, it's nice to meet you. I'm going to see you on May 11th when we open up the Whittier Courthouse again with Judge Troy, who's over here. So we're opening up access to justice to the community again. Very proud about that. It'll be a 100% family law hub, the only one in LA County, and we're very proud of it. We will have 6 courtrooms open to the public, wonderful self-help options available, as well as mediation, so we can help people get their cases resolved and done and out of the system. And I look forward to answering any questions you may have. A little bit about me before I became a commissioner is I worked with my father and my brother at Gibbons, Gibbons, and Gibbons. And my role at Gibbons, Gibbons, and Gibbons was predominantly representing juveniles who were in trouble, that got caught up in the system somehow, represented about 1,000 juveniles. And I'm proud of that because I got to help turn around a lot of lives. And when you get a letter from a child who's now in college on a full ride scholarship playing football, and you helped him fix a blip on his radar, that's a great day, and I'm proud of that. And prior to that, I've born and raised in Los Angeles County, just over the hill in La Mirada, and I now live in Lakewood, California, and I look forward to any questions you may have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Gibbons. Now we're going to turn to the candidates for Judicial Office 113. There are 3 candidates for this office. The first one I'm going to call upon is Javier Perez. Mr. Perez is a Deputy District Attorney, was rated well qualified by the LA County Bar Association. Mr. Perez.
Thank you, Your Honor. Again, my name is Javier Perez. I'm a candidate for seat 113. A little bit about myself. I'm born and raised in Montebello. About 18 years ago, moved into this community, so most of you guys are my neighbors. My parents are immigrants from Mexico. I've been a deputy DA for 27 years. As the judge mentioned, I was rated well qualified by the LA County Bar. I've tried various different types of cases within my career, ranging from misdemeanor DUIs, domestic violence, to serious and violent felonies such as murder, gang cases. I transitioned at some point to major special units such as major narcotics. At some point in our office, I spent 7 years as a supervising DA in East Los Angeles area court, which is the busiest area court in Los Angeles County, and then West Covina Court for 4 years, which is the busiest area court in LA County, which actually services most of this community. The judge mentioned some characteristics that are essential in determining whether you should vote for someone for judge. They were courage, decisiveness, intelligence, an ability to communicate, and integrity. I believe I've been demonstrating these characteristics throughout my career as a DA because those are essential characteristics that in order to be an effective, ethical DA, you have to possess. I've also demonstrated an ability to have empathy for the people that appear before us in court, both as victims and as defendants and as witnesses. This is oftentimes a foreign, scary place for many people to attend, to show up to. As a DA, we are obligated to make it as comfortable as possible for our witnesses and victims. I'll keep the rest of it short. I've been endorsed by the leadership, the leaders in LA County, Supervisor Catherine Barger, Supervisor Janice Hahn, former DA Steve Cooley, ALADS, LA County Federation of Labor, and I hope to get your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. The next, this is again for Judicial Office 113. The next candidate is Michael Ribon, or Michael, you'll have to come up and tell me exactly how to pronounce that. He identifies himself on the ballot as an arbitrator/lawyer, was rated qualified by the LA County Bar Association. How do you pronounce your name? Ribbons. Ribbons. There you go.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Michael Ribbons. I am running in seat 113. A little bit of history of myself, as many of the other candidates have said. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I attended undergrad in Los Angeles, and I went to law school in Los Angeles. As a teenager, I started a nonprofit organization and achieved a 501c3 rating from the Internal Revenue Service. And starting from an early age, I was an entrepreneur. I have started several successful businesses in Los Angeles. I've been a practicing attorney for approximately 22 years. I'm a civil litigator. As a civil litigator, I have represented both plaintiffs and defendants, small businessmen, indigent litigants, and everything in between. The last 8 years, I have been a pro tem for the Los Angeles Superior Court, which has been a privilege to serve. As a pro tem, I have heard a diversified calendar. I've heard traffic matters, unlawful detainer matters, civil harassment, limited civil, and small claims. And you get a wide variety of different cases. I believe that I have a reputation for being fair-minded, for being an active listener. In the cases that come before me, each case is unique. The facts of each case are unique to that case, and you simply apply the facts to the law. Now, while many people that I've conducted trials for may not agree with my ruling, I think it's almost universal that they are satisfied that justice was obtained, which is important in the court system. That is what people go to court for on the civil side, is for justice. As a criminal defendant, you're looking for justice, and as a victim, you are also looking for justice. How that comes down depends on the applicable law and, again, the facts of that case. I also, for the last 2 years, have been a judge pro tem for Ventura County as well. I have also been a mediator for the Los Angeles Superior Court and an arbitrator for the fee arbitration program of the San Fernando Valley Bar. In that capacity, we either sit in 1 or 3 member panels. In a 3-member panel, I'm typically the chair, and I write the findings of fact and conclusions of law, which is very similar to the actions that a judge will do when they hear a matter. I believe that I am best qualified in the office. I have nothing against my opponents. They're fine gentlemen, and they are qualified without a doubt. But I do believe that I am best. The most proud achievement of my life so far are my children. I have a son and a daughter. They're both terrific young adults. My daughter is an associate editor, and my son is one of the youngest airline pilots in the country at 22. If you'd like to learn more about me, please look me up on my website. It's www.ribbonsforjudge.com. Thank you, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Ribbons. And the third candidate for number 113, Judicial Office, is Stephen Schreiner. Yes, I believe. Schreiner. Stephen? Mr. Schreiner? Not here? Oh, there he is right there.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to thank all of you folks for coming out this morning. I want to echo Judge Bonner's comments. It's hard. It's hard to become known in this process, so we appreciate the fact that you folks are coming out. And I wanted to also thank Charles and Martha House, who I've come to know over these last 3 elections, because unfortunately, I'm one of the veterans here. I think you folks, some of you might recognize me because I was here in 2014 and again in 2016 as well. So just briefly, why am I back at it again? Hopefully the 3rd time's a charm, we'll see. I was fortunate that I did get a well-qualified rating from the LA County Bar, and I did in 2016 as well. It only counts for so much, though, because only so many people know it. I've been a deputy district attorney for 31 years. In the course of that time, I worked in misdemeanor and felony trial assignments. I was in special units, in the career criminal unit, the hardcore gang unit, a calendar deputy, and then in special trials from that point on. I mentioned trials and the number of them because in my experience coming out here before, typically people would rattle them off, so I thought, well, that's an important thing. So I tried to put it together, and I've come up with 224 felony jury trials that I've done in my career, including 83 murders and 6 death penalty cases. I'm fairly certain that that makes me by far the most experienced candidate in the races in terms of what I've done in a courtroom. And I mention that for a reason, not just to pat myself on the back, but because there is an objective way to measure the experience of a candidate. Judge Bonner mentioned the qualities that we look for, and I concur with that, of course. You're looking for appropriate temperament. You're looking for the experience that you acquire in the course of your career. You want a person who's decisive, who's fair, and has the integrity that you want in a judge. In the course of my 31 years, I've demonstrated those qualities. And it's not simply making the claim that it fits, that my temperament fits, or that my work ethic fits. When you look at experience and what the person's actually done, you can objectively measure it. The fact that I've done 224 felony trials indicates something. It indicates that I have the experience that you're looking for, and importantly, that I have the work ethic. Because, as you know, when you're in a certain position, you can start out like a ball of fire and not necessarily continue. But I've continued to try cases throughout my career because that's what I do and because that's important to me. As I said, 2 years ago, I got the well-qualified rating. I'm having a hard time seeing that. Okay. I got the well-qualified rating. I again got that from the county bar. 2 years ago, I thought everything fell into place. I got the LA Times endorsement, the Met News endorsement. Unfortunately, unlike Mr. Berger, I finished 20 points in the rear in the runoff in the fall. Nonetheless, I feel I'm the best qualified candidate, and I hope that you'll consider me when you vote on June 5th. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schreiner. I think that takes us to the next judicial office, another open seat, judicial office number 118. And there are 2 candidates running for 118, only one of whom is with us this morning, and that is Troy Davis. So Troy Davis is a deputy district attorney and was rated qualified by the LA County Bar Association. I meant to point out, when I don't mention somebody's rating, it generally means they were rated qualified. But Mr. Davis.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you for Mr. and Mrs. House for putting this on, and thank you for everyone for being here. I think this is a rare opportunity to hear from all the candidates. There are not many other forums like this, so thank you very much for coming out and taking your time on this Saturday morning. As the judge has said, my name is Troy Davis. I'm a deputy district attorney with LA County. I've spent my career after graduating law school at Loyola Law School in downtown LA. Spent my career at the DA's office as a prosecutor, and even before that as a law clerk while I was still in school. I am assigned for the last several years to the Victim Impact Program. I've been in Compton and Norwalk and in Long Beach in that role. And what that program is we handle felony violations of, it ends up being mostly child sexual molestation and also child physical abuse, as well as domestic violence and sometimes elder abuse and human trafficking. And I understand how important those cases are and the ramifications they have on the victims and their families, as well as the ramifications on the suspects and the defendants. And so I understand how it's very important to get these cases right. And in that capacity, I've tried to learn as much as I can every day from everyone around me. I've learned a lot from many of the people right here on this panel have been my colleagues as well as my opponents in some cases. And I try to learn from everyone, judges, colleagues, victims, law enforcement, and opponents in all these cases. And I think that's extremely important characteristics that you would want in a judge, is someone who is decisive, but only decisive after fully listening to every party and every aspect of the case. Because each case, as Mr. Ribbon said, is important to the people who are before you. It's not just another case, and you have to treat everyone fairly and give them a fair opportunity to fully take into account their interests. I believe that I have the qualities that Judge Bonner mentioned earlier that you want in a judge. The temperament. Everyone who knows me knows that I'm always calm, even when things don't go my way. When you're an attorney, there are two attorneys before the judge, and only one of them can have things go their way. So you're going to be wrong half the time, according to the judge. And I'm comfortable with that. I accept the rulings and move on, and without getting flustered. And I think that that would be a good characteristic that the people would want of a judge on the bench, is to be able to remain calm despite being in very pressured situations. I have the ability to listen and to communicate. I think everyone who knows me would back that up. I have the endorsements of Steve Cooley, the former district attorney, as well as the Long Beach Police Officers Association, Torrance Police Officers Association, the Association of the LA County Deputy Sheriffs, and the Gardena and Bell Police Officers Association, and the LA County Professional Police Officers Association. And I also believe I have the characteristic of incorruptibility or integrity. And I think what that means to me is that you have to make some decisions even if they're not popular, make very difficult decisions, and understand that some people are not going to like the decision you make, but you still have to make that right decision. And I believe that I have the experience and the capabilities and would be a good candidate for this seat. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Now we're going to turn to the next open seat, which is Judicial Office number 126. And there are three candidates for that office. Two of them are not here. The one that is here, I believe, is Ken Fuller. Mr. Fuller is a deputy district attorney, and I'm going to call him forward at this point. Office number 126.
Thank you, Your Honor, and good morning to all of you. Thank you very much for coming here on a Saturday morning, and thank you, Mr. and Mrs. House, for putting this together. Again, my name is Ken Fuller. I grew up in the San Gabriel Valley, just over the hill, And I attended USC, USC Film School, graduated with honors from that program, was lucky enough to get into the USC Law School, where I excelled in various different subjects. I ran a small business while I was in law school, and I also clerked for the Crimes Against Peace Officers Unit in the District Attorney's Office that concentrated primarily on prosecuting gang homicides. I was lucky enough to be promoted and accepted into the District Attorney's Office, where I have tried 75 jury trials, almost double that in court trials, having been in the Compton juvenile system, one of the most busy juvenile courts in the nation, which accounts for both Compton and Watts. After that, I joined the Victim Impact Program in both Pomona and the Norwalk offices, where I prosecuted child molestation cases, special victims cases, rape cases, domestic violence cases. After that, I tried out and was lucky enough to be accepted into the Hardcore Gang Division, which prosecutes gang homicides and attempted murders. I participated twice in the Community Law Enforcement and Recovery Program in both Baldwin Village and in the Watts communities. That program is designed specifically to target national gangs in those areas by meeting regularly with community leaders on a monthly basis. Throughout my career in the DA's office, I participated in the Project Lead program, which involves teaching fifth graders on a weekly basis about the criminal justice system, gang intervention, anti-bullying, the importance of tolerance, and getting an education in this world so that we can prevent children from entering the juvenile justice system before it's too late. In addition, I have been in the Environmental Crimes Division of the DA's office, which is very unique because we do both civil and criminal cases in that division. And I prosecuted not only gang members and child molestation cases, but also, in many instances, corporations who are systematically polluting our environment and individuals who are illegally poaching wildlife in this county. In addition, I felt the call to service. In 2010, I began the process of applying to be a commissioned officer in the United States Air Force Reserve. And 2 years later, after a very extensive vetting process, I was accepted to become an Air Force JAG officer. I had to attend officer training school in Maxwell Air Force Base, Alabama, for many months. I also had to go to military law school, had to learn various different areas of the law outside of my comfort zone of criminal law. And I earned the American Trial Lawyers Association Award for Excellence in Advocacy with the United States Air Force JAG Corps. I also have the record for most legal assistance hours given to our servicemen and women at the Los Angeles Air Force Base for 2 years in a row. In addition, I do both criminal and civil cases in the Air Force. I have clients. I have had to deal with family law, labor law, immigration law, contracts, unlawful detainer, landlord-tenant law, various different areas of the law. And in the JAG Corps, you have to be a generalist, and there's no such thing as the phrase, "I'm sorry, sir, that's not my specialty." The reason I mention that is because that's very important as a judge. As a judge, you can sit in family law, civil law, criminal law, landlord-tenant law, traffic, any number of areas, and you have to be prepared to make decisions in those areas, regardless of whether it was originally your specialty or not. And like a judge, I've been placed in situations of command where I've had enlisted individuals underneath my authority, and I've had to give orders knowing the responsibility that they must be followed, and that's a sobering and maturing experience, and that the Air Force Officer Training School gave me. In addition, I have the endorsement of the Association of Deputy Sheriffs in Los Angeles, the LAPD Police Protective League, El Monte Police Officers Association, the Los Angeles Federation of Labor, SEIU, in addition, numerous judges, prosecutors, and defense attorneys, as well as my local congresswoman and assembly person. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I would truly appreciate your support on June 5th. And again, my name is Ken Fuller. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Now we're going to turn to another open seat, and that is Judicial Office number 146. There are two candidates for this office. I'll call on both of them that are here. The first one is Emily Teresa Spear. She is a Deputy District Attorney, raising the question, of course, will Jackie Lacey, our District Attorney, have any Deputy District Attorneys left if all these people are elected to the bench? But don't worry about it, because there are lots of Deputy District Attorneys. Ms. Spear.
I want to start by thanking everyone for being here. I know you could be at home with your families on this Saturday morning, so I'm so glad that you're here to support us. I have been a district attorney for 11 years, and before that I was in private practice for 2 years. In that time, I've tried some of our office's most difficult cases, including infanticides, serial rapists, child molesters, gang shootings, you name it. For the last 5 years, I have been assigned to, like several of my colleagues, the Victim Impact Program, which is sex crimes, crimes against children, and domestic violence, and some amount of elder abuse. I'm currently assigned to our Sex Crimes Division, and because of that, I am very passionate about the rights of women and children in court. I feel that they are an underserved community, and I want to make sure that they are represented and that they get their chance to get justice here in our Los Angeles Superior Courts. I have the endorsement of several different police protective agencies: Long Beach Police Department, the Long Beach POA, LAPD's PPL, which is a Police Protective League, and ALADS. Interestingly enough, I am actually endorsed by 2 judges who are present in court here with us today. One is Judge Connolly, who did a magnificent job representing us over 2 very difficult cases. One was the child molestation of a 9-year-old who was being molested by her biological father. The second one was a very complex case involving a man who had killed his 5-year-old niece. He pled insanity. We did a jury trial, which is fairly rare among us district attorneys for those types of cases, and he did a magnificent job presiding over both of those cases. The other judge here is Carol Nahara, who interestingly enough was my boss 10 years ago. And she is also endorsing me here in our judicial race. She's also supported by her husband, Dave Edwards, who is actually a retired LA County Sheriff. So I have a lot of support in the community, and I want to continue to represent the rights of women and children here in our community and make sure that they have equal access to justice. Thank you again so much for your time here this morning.
Thank you, Ms. Spear. And the other candidate for office number 146 is Armando Duran, who is a Superior Court Commissioner. Commissioner Duran.
Good morning, all of you. And I, too, want to thank you for spending some time here this morning to hear us, because I know there's a lot of confusion about what the Superior Court does and, in fact, what all these numbers mean. For your purposes, they really don't mean anything in terms of the office numbers. Those are constitutional numbers, but doesn't mean that we serve in any particular district. We serve countywide. We're elected countywide. You know, it's very heartwarming to be here this morning, being a product of East Los Angeles projects and being standing here before you running for Superior Court Judge. It's been a long road. It hasn't been easy, but I'm here because I know that I am qualified to be your Superior Court Judge. About 3 years ago, I too was vetted by the Superior Court to become a commissioner. I've had 3 assignments, and I want to answer Judge Bonner's questions by explaining to you what I do and what I've done for 2.5 years as a commissioner. My first assignment was one of the hardest assignments that anybody can get because it had not really been done. I was selected to sit at domestic violence restraining order hearings, to hear only domestic violence restraining orders all day long, 9 to 4:30, excuse me. I heard case after case, domestic violence restraining orders. After that, I was asked to go to Central Civil West to handle child support cases. And the reason why I was asked to do that is because there was a backlog there. And they needed someone who had already proven that he knew how to manage a calendar, which is very important. You see, we are overworked in Los Angeles County. We have a lot of cases. Every judicial officer will tell you there's too many cases that we each have. But we have to manage that calendar. We have to get through the day and get all our cases done. At the same time, you have to do it by making sure that when people walk out of your courtroom, they feel that they were heard. That is the most important thing for all the litigants, whether they're coming into criminal law, whether they're coming into civil law, family law, probate, dependency, juvenile, small claims, landlord-tenant. They want to walk out of that courtroom feeling they were heard. So how do you do that? You do that, number one, by being prepared. That means you have to read the files before people actually show up. You have to be familiar with the cases so you can then be able to ask the right questions. You see, because over 70% of all the litigants, except for in criminal law, are self-represented. They don't know all of the statutes. They don't know all the procedures. They don't know how to put on their case. So you don't just sit there and be an active listener. You have to be, as a judicial officer, an active participant. You have to ask the questions to get the evidence, to see if they have met their burden. And you have to do it in a way that is efficient, that hears both sides, and that renders a decision. Now, I sit now in Compton in family law, handling all family law cases, only family law cases. What that means, though, is that I decide things like child support, child custody, visitation, move-away cases. Those are very bitter. Sometimes those are very bitterly contested situations. I have to try and not only make the right decision, but I have to try and get the buy-in from the parties so they don't walk out of that courtroom just as mad as each other as they walked in. Because oftentimes there are children involved, and the children are the ones who take the consequences of a bitter divorce, for example. So that's a way of my telling you that I already have the experience to be a judicial officer, a judge, to be elected by you, the citizens of Los Angeles County. I have the enthusiastic support of the presiding judge of Los Angeles Superior Court, Dan Buckley, the assistant presiding judge who's going to become the presiding judge, Kevin Brazil, the head of criminal, the head of family, and a wide variety of other people. You can see that in my website, and I want to thank you all so very, very much for coming out and for considering me. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Duran. We're making good progress. We have 4 more open seats for which candidates will address you. The first one, the next one is Judicial Office number 4. We have 3 candidates for that office, 2 of whom are here, and the first one I'm going to call on is Alfred Coletta, who is a Deputy District Attorney. Mr. Coletta.
Thank you, Judge Bonner, Mr. and Mrs. House, judges that are in the audience, the elected officials, ladies and gentlemen that are concerned community members, thank you for being here. My name is Alfred Coletta. I'm running for seat number 4, which is a vacant seat, formerly held by Judge Roy Paul for 28 years. I am the candidate endorsed by Judge Roy Paul to assume his seat. He carefully vetted my background, my character, before putting his name before me and allowing me to publish it. It was published in the Met News, and it's also on my website, colettaforjudge.com. By way of background, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was born and raised in the city of Los Angeles. My parents were immigrants from Italy. English was a second language for me. Nonetheless, parents instilled upon me education, and with that, I treat that as the basis of why I'm here. They gave me good advice. I wanted to be a lawyer when I was 16, sitting with my parents in their attorney's office. They were drawing up their trust and their will. And I had that experience where I felt I too wanted to help people as I saw my parents being helped by an attorney. Going through college, my father passed away my junior year, and thereafter it resulted in my having to work to complete my balance of years in college to get myself through school. And then thereafter, upon graduating with a Bachelor of Science degree in environmental engineering, health sciences, I was an aerospace engineer and kept in the back of my mind my desire to be an attorney. After 4 years in aerospace, saving money, I worked my way through law school, attended law school at night at Western State University in Fullerton. Now it's currently in Irvine. Upon passing the bar, I began practicing law 31 years ago. First in civil practice, one of my first assignments that I accepted was with the County Council of Los Angeles as a deputy county counsel assigned to the juvenile dependency courts, advocating for the rights of abused children, hoping to reunite families with their children if they could. If not, there were times where I conducted trials before bench officers. Unfortunately, at times, parents had to lose those gifts and learn how to become parents before they can reunited with their children. Thereafter, I also joined the DA's office 30 years ago. At the conclusion of May of this year, I've completed 30 years with the District Attorney's Office. My assignments have been varied from municipal court to superior court, and in the history of serving as a prosecutor for LADA's office, I've completed 120 felony jury trials to verdict. 43 were homicides, 3 with special circumstance. I've been assigned to the Hardcore Gang Division. I've been assigned to Major Narcotics and Forfeiture Division. I've been assigned to Environmental Crimes and OSHA Division. I've been assigned to the Justice System Integrity Division. And I'll digress in a moment and address each one of them. In hardcore gangs, we prosecuted gang murders. That's where I completed a number of murder trials. In Environmental Crimes OSHA Division, I was permitted to not only prosecute corporations and individuals criminally, but also civilly. I have civil experience in that division, prosecuting for unfair business practices and fraud, also for violations of our water streams. In the Justice System Integrity Division, I think it goes with saying that the necessary discipline, I was required to roll out to officer-involved shootings, use of excessive force claims, and at times I found myself conducting trials against former police officers who were suspended pending the outcome of a criminal case. I've also prosecuted lawyers for practicing law with a suspended license, taking money from clients. I've also been through the grand jury process 5 times. In each of those 5 indictments that I've obtained, not one of them has ever been overturned. I also trained as a grand jury advisor so that I could act as a grand jury advisor when called upon before the criminal grand jury of Los Angeles. As a prosecutor, we often think of that all we do is put people behind bars, but it's a discipline that requires restraint, discipline, temperance, fairness. Also, what goes with that is the right and the requirement by law to dismiss when required, not to pursue matters that we could not prove beyond a reasonable doubt. When you go to my website, you'll see that I'm supported by a number of opposing counsel, and I think that suggests that I'm fair, I'm ethical, and I'm well respected by the opposing parties, not just by law enforcement. I like to think that I'm law enforcement's choice. I, too, am endorsed by the Los Angeles Police Department, the LA Sheriff's Department, the Long Beach Police Department, the Torrance Police Department, the Burbank Police Department, Professional Peace Officers Association. I do join with Judge Bonner as characterizes the requirements, and I believe I possess all of that. I welcome you to go to my website to validate what I've told you, and my name is Alfred Coletta, and I ask for your vote for seat number 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coletta. And our next, the other candidate, well, the other candidate here, there are 3 candidates for number 4, but is Veronica Salceda, and Ms. Salceda is a Superior Court Commissioner. Ms. Salceda.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me. Thank you, Judge Bonner. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. House, for hosting this wonderful forum. My name is Veronica Salceda, and I'm running for office seat number 4. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself and my qualifications. I was born in Mexico. I emigrated here with my parents as a young child, and I'm one of 10 children. I experienced the life of what most immigrant families experience here in California. My parents were farm workers when I was a young child, and as a child of immigrant farm workers, my parents took us to the fields during summers, so there was no such thing as summer vacations for us. We had to pick strawberries so that we could earn a living and so that we could purchase our first home. And that taught me a very valuable lesson, hard work and dedication. My parents also taught me the value of service to others. And even with 10 children to support and living in a one-bedroom house, my parents always helped others. And that is an invaluable characteristic. I took that to heart when I went to UCLA undergrad and graduated from UCLA Law School. And after law school, I chose a career in public service. I worked for 2 different nonprofits. I started my career in San Fernando Valley, the San Fernando Valley Legal Services, which is now Neighborhood Legal Services. I advocated on behalf of underrepresented groups of people. I assisted with family law cases. I litigated hundreds, if not thousands, of domestic abuse cases, family law, dissolutions, parentage, and child support cases. I also worked for a second nonprofit in Boyle Heights, Los Angeles Center for Law and Justice. And there, I took on a supervisory role, and I supervised the Shriver Family Law Project. And that was a project collaboration with the Superior Court of Los Angeles, Stanley Mosque, and we took on high conflict custody cases. And so I solely litigated high conflict custody cases for 2 years. And just as my colleagues on the bench, I am also a sitting bench officer. I was selected and vetted by the Los Angeles Superior Court judges to do what they do, which is to judge. I currently sit in Compton. I am a family law bench officer. I preside over all family law issues, custodies, divorces, parentage, child support, and of course, domestic abuse cases. And prior to that, I was in West Covina as a traffic commissioner for a little over a year. I have judicial experience. I've had judicial experience for over 2.5 years. I am fair. I am impartial. I transitioned from being an advocate to being a bench officer. And I know that I have the patience and the integrity that it takes to make fair and impartial decisions on a daily basis, because that's what I do every day. I see my job as a commissioner as an extension of my public service. And I also have the support of the top brass at Los Angeles Superior Court. Our presiding judge, Judge Daniel Buckley, supports me. In fact, when he found out that I was running, he called me. This was an unsolicited phone call. He said, "Veronica, if there's anything I can do to help you, let me know. I think that you're exceptionally well qualified to do the job, and I support you 150%. And that is truly humbling, because he supervises 577 judges and commissioners. And for him to call me and tell me that I have his support means the world to me. I also have the support of the assistant presiding judge, Kevin Brazil. I have the support and endorsement of major labor organizations such as AFSCME, District Council 36, SCIU Local 721, the American Federation of Labor. I've also been rated well qualified by the LA County Bar Association. And I also have the endorsement of the Los Angeles County Democratic Party. I've also been endorsed by numerous judges, some of whom are here today. And I've been endorsed by Labor leader Dolores Huerta, Senators Ed Hernandez and Ricardo Lara. And I hope to have your support, office seat number 4. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Salceda. Now we'll go to Judicial Office number 16. And we have, for number 16, we have 3 candidates. We'll start with Sydney Jane Michael or Michelle, Senior Deputy City Prosecutor. Ms. Michelle. How do you?
Michelle.
Michelle. Ms. Michelle speaking now. You have the lectern.
Thank you, Your Honor. And thank you so much to the Houses for holding this amazing forum. This is really terrific. And thank you so much to all of you. Good morning. Thank you to the judges and the elected officials for being here. It's an honor that you are all here today, and I'm grateful for all of you for coming. So my name is Sydney Jane Michelle, and my title is Senior Deputy City Prosecutor for the cities of Redondo Beach and Hermosa Beach. A little bit about my background. I graduated from UCLA with honors. After UCLA, I eventually ended up at Loyola Law School, where it sounds like a lot of us went. It's really a wonderful law school. There I received several awards. I was on the trial advocacy team, and I received awards for my Ninth Circuit trial advocacy team, and I was able to serve as a law clerk while I was in law school at the United States Attorney's Office and at the Deputy District Attorney's Office and at a civil law firm. So when I graduated, I was fortunate to be recruited by some of the large firms in downtown LA. The one I chose to go to was called Kirkland, and it is called Kirkland and Ellis. It's one of the most respected and premier law firms in the nation. It's very similar to the firm that Judge Bonner is of counsel to, Gibson, Dunn, and Crutcher. They do large-scale, complex litigation cases. Ken Starr, the former Whitewater investigator, was one of my partners. I made partner at that large law firm after 6 years. I was very proud of that, making partner, and one of my most favorite things about being there is I was made the pro bono coordinator of the Los Angeles office. So as the pro bono coordinator, I got to give back. I got to help individuals who are indigent. I received a certificate of recognition for representing pro se plaintiffs in civil rights cases. So specifically prisoners who were in prison and were not given blankets or proper food or medical attention. And my firm represented these plaintiffs in their civil rights actions. I was at Kirkland & Ellis for 10 years and I learned how to write. I had partners scratching up my briefs. No passive language, no adverbs, write like you're a reporter for the LA Times. And that's a really valuable thing to learn to write for 10 years. And it has served me well because I do write a lot of pretrial briefs. And I believe you can win trials based on the motions. And I think judges like having the law in front of them in writing. It's very helpful. After spending 10 years at Kirkland & Ellis, I decided I wanted to be in court more. And I wanted to be a public servant. I also had 2 young boys, and I wanted to be there for them as well. So I was very fortunate to get a job as a deputy city prosecutor initially for the city of Redondo Beach, and then in 2009, I was promoted to become the senior deputy city prosecutor. I have now been a criminal prosecutor for 12 years. So I've spent 10 years in a large civil firm doing complex civil litigation, white-collar criminal defense, employment law, bankruptcy law, and whatever else you do when you're a civil litigator. It's a different subject matter every couple of years. And I've also been a criminal prosecutor now for 12 years. So 22 years, and I believe that I am uniquely qualified because I've spent 10 years in a civil firm and 12 years as a criminal prosecutor. I prosecute misdemeanors that occur in the city of Redondo Beach or Hermosa Beach, and you may not know, but misdemeanors range from vehicular manslaughter to sexual assault, assault with a deadly weapon, petty thefts, all kinds of vandalism cases, whatever. There's many cases that are what they call wobblers, can be misdemeanors or felonies, and we usually do those. So I believe I'm uniquely qualified because of that. I would add one quality to what Judge Bonner says that I think makes a terrific judge, and that's empathy. You have to have empathy for both sides. And I believe in my courtroom I would want to make sure victims receive a fair trial, and defendants receive a fair trial, as I've represented both sides. And I will end with a quote from Steve Cooley, who has endorsed me along with 3 labor unions, many judges, some of whom are here. Sidney Michelle will be a true asset to the bench. Based on her extensive experience as a civil attorney and prosecutor, I am proud to endorse her and give her my vote. I ask for your vote on June 5th. Seat 16, Sidney Michelle. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Ms. Michelle. And another candidate for Judicial Office number 16 is Patricia Hunter. She's a deputy city attorney, I think, with the City of LA. Ms. Hunter.
Good morning, everybody. I really appreciate this opportunity to be here to talk to all of you about my qualifications. Up? Oh, I'm not used to speaking. Is this good? Is that better? Okay. Again, I so appreciate this opportunity because judicial races are funny animals, I have found out. So much of it is sort of gut reaction. The conventional wisdom when I first put my name in, I was talking to people, they said, well, it depends on who your campaign manager is and how much money you have and how many slate mailers you can buy that don't even necessarily have to do with your qualifications. And it's a reality. I'm no spring chicken, and I'm not particularly naive, but in that respect, I don't know, it bothered me because I know what I'm about. I know my experience. I know I've been in a courtroom for over 30 years. I graduated from Loyola Law School also, so many of people here. I was on law review. I graduated in the top 2% of my class, I'm proud to say. I think that goes to my ability to interpret the law. I've been a lifelong Los Angeles resident. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I care about Los Angeles. My husband of 32 years, also born and raised in Los Angeles. We raised our 3 children here. Does that make me a great candidate for judge? No, but I can tell you that I care about my community. And because I care about my community and because I care about people and because I have the intellect and ability to interpret and follow the law, I think those things make me a great candidate. I started my legal career, if you will, as a law clerk to a federal judge. Very difficult job to get, very prestigious job. It was Judge Lachlan Waters here in the Central District. And I suspect Judge Bonner knows who that is because when I started in that position in 1987, I recall, I think Judge Bonner was the U.S. Attorney at that time, and he spoke to us. He spoke to the incoming law clerks, and I remember that. And I remember Judge Bonner telling us about how important it is to have integrity, to be honest, to take our position at that time as law clerks very much to heart, to respect the courts. I even remember one of the other law clerks asking, why is it so formal in federal court? And if I remember correctly, and it's been a long time, at least my impression, my feeling was because we need to respect the courts. We need to respect the law. And now, after over 30 years as a lawyer, and almost all of that in a courtroom, the last 28 years as a prosecutor in the city attorney's office. Those are more than just initial words to me. I know how important it is for a judge to listen, for a judge to listen to both sides, to all sides, to everybody, and then take that information and apply the law, interpret the law, be able to interpret the law, and then do it with integrity and honesty. I, in addition to being a criminal prosecutor for over 24 of my 28 years with the city attorney's office, I did civil litigation, some complex civil litigation, and I can say that as life sort of, the small world of life, I did a trial in front of Judge Mackey. I did an employment case, a jury trial in front of Judge Mackey. I'm proud of my ability to understand the law, interpret the law, apply the law, and I have the judicial, I would say, the right personality, temperance. I, like many of the other people here, have the respect and endorsement of colleagues. Time up. If you would, thank you, I will. And if you want to learn more about me, about my endorsements, about colleagues, opponents, elected officials, judges who endorse me, please go to my website. It's Patty Hunter with number 4, judge.com. And I very much appreciate you being here, and I hope I have earned your vote. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hunter. By the way, Judge Locke Waters, one of the greatest federal judges who ever sat on the U.S. District Court for the Central District of California. The third candidate for Judicial Office 16 is Hubert Yoon. Mr. Yoon? There we go. The floor is yours.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. House, for hosting this judicial forum so candidates can learn more, or excuse me, the public can learn more about the candidates in this race. Much like many of the candidates here before you, I also was born in Los Angeles County, the city of Los Angeles. I lived much of my life in the city of Arcadia, right down the freeway, and I still reside in Los Angeles County. I graduated from law school in 2003 from Loyola Law School. I passed the bar in November of 2003, and I went to work for a civil law firm for approximately 2.5 years. My primary responsibility was basically being in-house counsel for lending firms, 2 private lending firms, family-owned lending firms. And I also worked on labor litigation involving employees and class action lawsuits against their employers for labor violations. During my time doing civil practice, I realized that for me personally, I wasn't getting fulfillment from the civil practice, and I wanted to do something different. And in 2005, I applied to the district attorney's office to be a deputy district attorney. Unfortunately, it didn't work out, but for good reasons. Things work out for reasons, and in 2006, I was hired by the district attorney's office, and fortunately for me, not getting hired in 2005 allowed me to meet my wife in 2006 in our training class, who I ultimately married after I met her. But in 2006, I started my career with the district attorney's office, and I've worked a wide range of assignments, starting with misdemeanor assignments here in local courthouses, starting in West Covina, and then Bellflower. And then I ultimately moved to the Pomona courthouse in March of 2017, where I continued with misdemeanors, and then ultimately moved on to felony trials. I spent approximately 2 years at Pomona courthouse doing felony trials, murders, robberies, narcotics cases. And then after that time period, I was transferred to a juvenile courthouse in East Los Angeles called East Lake Juvenile Court, where I dealt for 1 year dealing with juvenile offenders, ages 14 and up to basically 1 day shy of 18, and having to deal with juvenile offenders and deciding what we needed to do with those individuals, either sending them into custody for long periods of time, sending them to adult court to be tried as adults, or putting them on probation and letting them go home and go back to school. After a one-year period in juvenile court, I went back to the adult court in the Central District of Los Angeles, where I worked in central trials for approximately 2 years. In August of 2012, I was transferred to my current assignment, which is the Hardcore Gang Division. And for approximately 3.5 years downtown, I was assigned to the Rampart Division of Los Angeles Police Department in what's called the CLEAR program, which is the Community Law Enforcement program, where you work with the community members and you meet with community members on a bi-weekly basis, have meetings with the Los Angeles police officers, Los Angeles City Attorney, Los Angeles Probation, and Parole to figure out how to combat gang crime within a certain territory of the Rampart Division. I was subsequently transferred to the LAX courthouse and to now my current assignment, which is the Long Beach courthouse, where I prosecute gang murder cases that occur within the Long Beach courthouse jurisdiction. I've tried over the course of my career 77 jury trials, including 67 felony trials, 30 of which have involved murder and or attempted murder trials. Of those murder trials that I've tried, 4 have been special circumstance cases, and I currently have 3 special circumstances cases on my caseload. Part of the reason why I want to be a judge is I want to continue my service to the public. The biggest gratification of my job is not wins and losses in the courtroom. The biggest gratification of serving the public is when a victim of crime comes up to you and thanks you for the work that you've done and thanks you for bringing justice to them and their family. But it's not only the victim's family that has thanked me over the course of my career. It's the defendant's family, the defendants who have also thanked me for being a fair prosecutor and allowing justice to take place. And that's what this is about. This is about justice. In my free time, I act as a mediator as well. I mediate disputes between my 3 young boys that are 7 years and younger. Thank you very much.
That could be a challenge. All right. So next we're going to move to Judicial Office number 20. And we have 2 candidates for that office, both of whom are here. Let me start with Marianne Escalante, who is a Deputy District Attorney. Ms. Escalante? Oh. Never know which way to look.
Thank you first to Judge Bonner and the Mr. and Mrs. House for having this forum. I greatly appreciate all of the community coming out to be here for such an important event. My name is Marianne Escalante, and I've been a Deputy District Attorney for 30 years. I'd like to start from the beginning, but don't worry, I see the timer. I was born in Long Beach and raised locally. I came from a family of 7 siblings. My father's family's from Mexico. He instilled in all his children, education is everything, and the harder you work, the luckier you'll get. So we live by that. So my siblings are all college educated, and I went to San Diego State. I have a business degree, and then I immediately went to Loyola Law School. It's a wonderful school. I graduated in 1987. I passed the bar and got hired in the DA's office almost immediately in February of 1988. I started in Long Beach I started in Downey when it was a 1-story building, and I tried 17 misdemeanors. I loved it. It was fulfilling, it was rewarding. I got to know the families and the crimes, and I really liked it. But prior to that, when I was at Loyola, I worked in civil law firms, one of which was O'Melveny & Myers. So initially, I thought I was going to be a real estate attorney. But I took this class at Loyola Law School, which was a trial ad class, and I fell in love with the whole procedure. Being in front of the jury, explaining your case, calling witnesses, putting it in order. So that's where I'm going to now, Downey, where I tried all my cases, 17. Then I was transferred to the Long Beach courthouse, where I started doing felony trials. And I was known as a trial collector because I really had passion for it. I had passion for everything about it, and especially interacting with the victims' families. From there, I was recruited to the hardcore gang unit in Compton, where I tried murders, attempted murders, and assaults. And I worked there for about 6 years. Then they rotate us out because everybody wants to go there. So then I became a calendar deputy in Compton, where I handled the calendar caseload, and I would also supervise 2 other attorneys. And I also tried cases while a supervisor of the calendar court because I really have my passion there. I was then recruited to the Compton Sexual Assault, Child Abuse, and Domestic Violence Unit, where I was a supervisor of 5 attorneys. I also tried cases there as well. I had the unique experience of interviewing children and adults of child molestation and sexual rape cases, and had to determine what charges to file and what was the appropriate disposition in those cases. Those really tug at your heart, and you build a lot of empathy. After that unit, I was recruited back to the hardcore gang unit in Norwalk, where I worked for several more years, trying more murders and gang cases. From there, I went back to, I was asked to go to Compton to be the supervisor of the hardcore gang unit. I supervised around 6 gang attorneys and came up with appropriate dispositions in those cases as well. After that, I went to the abolic chronic truancy unit, where I was able to really interact with the community. I talked to parents about their children that were chronically truant. Very rewarding. Then I had some family issues, so I went part-time, but I have to tell you, in that part-time work, I did the exact same duties as the full-time employee. I took a full person's position as a half person. The only difference was I did not have office days. So I would go to court Monday, Wednesday, every other Friday, and I would do my office work at home, or I just learned to be very, very efficient. Now I'm in the same program full-time with the same caseload. My husband's now in remission from cancer, so that's all good. So I'm back at work full-time. And I handle hundreds of cases a week, reading the facts, looking at the rap sheets, and determining the exact disposition to give these people. Some of them include jail time, but I have to listen to the defense attorney side, put it all together, and make an appropriate disposition. I'm endorsed by almost every person that you heard here, including the presiding judge of LA County and the assistant, and I'm very proud of that. And I have so much passion. I've been in the office for 30 years, and I want to give 20 more years back on the bench, and I will be a great judge based on my 100 jury trials, 34 murders, and 2 capital cases. There's nothing I can't hear. There's nothing that I can't do, and I want you to know I will be fair, honest, with integrity. I will make sound decisions, and I will be an excellent judge for the community of LA. Thank you very much. I appreciate being here.
Thank you, Ms. Escalante. And the other candidate for Judicial Office number 20 is Wendy Segal. Ms. Segal?
Hello, everyone. My name is Wendy Siegel, and I'm running for Judicial Office number 20. I want to first thank the Houses and Your Honor for this opportunity to address you and all of you as well. I also am a Deputy District Attorney who went to Loyola, but I do offer a unique perspective. I was raised in LA. I have always been raised in LA. I have lived in LA my entire life. I went to Boston University for undergrad, where I got a degree in business, and then I came back and went to Loyola Law School, and then I went to New York University, where I got an LLM in taxation. That is a Master of Laws in Taxation. It is the #1 program in the country, and that is why I went there. I passed the New York bar. After that program, it was 1 year, and I came back to Los Angeles, where I did civil law for 1 year. Then I did criminal defense for 2 years, and I've been in the office of the district attorney for 23 years. In my 23 years, I spent the first 5 years doing felonies, and I became a supervisor in my first 5 years. Also in those first 5 years, I did sex crimes cases, and I handled the office's first 2 trials of cyber sex sting cases. Those are what you see on Dateline and To Catch a Predator. I did those before they were on TV, and because of my successful prosecutions, I was asked to join the FBI SAFE team, which I was a member of for 2 years. I was then recruited to our major narcotics unit, where I prosecuted drug-endangered children cases. Those were methamphetamine labs cases where children were living where the methamphetamine was being produced. We decided to charge the parents with child abuse or child endangerment. I traveled all over the country and became a national recognized expert in those cases. I was there for 8 years. I became a member of the LA Impact team and also the Sheriff's CalMet team. After that, I was recruited to our office's Stalking and Threat Assessment Unit. I was the sole deputy there for 8 years, where I handled the high-profile stalking and threat cases. Those were threat cases to any official, celebrity, police officer, other DAs, other defense attorneys. And in that role, I handled mentally ill. I realized there was a mental issue with our criminal system, within the criminal system, that was not being addressed. And I worked with the health officials to come up with alternative sentences for these defendants. And my theory was twofold. My goal was twofold, that I wanted to protect the victims from this ongoing behavior, and I wanted to keep the defendants from recurring events. And I have had a success in that role. I don't handle those cases anymore. I'm in another unit, but I am proud to say that the recidivism rate has been so low, and I still actually keep up on those cases and attend progress reports based on my victims and the defendants. I'm also a recognized expert in stalking within the office and the country, and still answer to those cases as well. Now I'm assigned to our healthcare fraud unit, where I was recruited by my now head deputy, where I handle complex multi-million-dollar fraud cases, including identity theft, which is a prevalent problem and needs to be addressed. In my spare time, I am a MOST mentor. It is a program, I've been a mentor for 10 years. That program is for young girls from underserved and underprivileged communities to get them into college and beyond. We have a 100% success rate in that program of getting all of those girls into college. I'm also a teen court proctor at 2 Los Angeles high schools. I have an unprecedented 122 judicial endorsements. I am also endorsed by Steve Cooley, and I have his sole endorsement. Jackie Lacey is not endorsing for the primary. I am the only candidate in my race, in race 20, that has done a trial since 2003. In fact, I continue to do trials. I am the only candidate to have worked worked full-time for 28 years. My opponent was part-time for 12 years, doing an early disposition program. And I am the most qualified for this race. I am endorsed by Herb Wesson, Paul Koretz, several police chiefs, AFSCME, the California Narcotics Officers Association, the Los Angeles Police Protective League, and more. I'd ask you to look at my website, wendysiegelforjudge.com, and I look forward to your vote on June 5th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Siegel. And now we turn to, this is the last judicial office number 60. And we're going to start with Tony Cho, and Mr. Cho is a Deputy District Attorney. Mr. Cho.
All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to start by echoing the comments of everybody else that's spoken before me, and thank Mr. and Mrs. House, Judge Bonner, and all of you for attending this event. Now, just by way of introduction, my name is Tony Cho. I've been a lawyer for almost 17 years now. In the first 4 years of my career after law school, I spent in civil law, managing complex civil litigation. Then I joined the DA's office, where I've been for the last 13 years. I have extensive trial experience. I think I have the most trial experience among the candidates in this particular race, having done almost 70 jury trials, handling very complex, serious, and violent cases as well. I currently specialize in elder abuse prosecution. That is, I prosecute people that physically abuse elders, that sexually assault them, that commit domestic violence, murder, And on the other end of the spectrum, I prosecute people that victimize elders by financial abuse, identity theft, that real estate fraud, stealing their house from under them, stealing elders' life savings. I also prosecute elder neglect cases where elders are left in the most inhumane conditions that you can possibly imagine. And because of the extensive experience that I have, I've been endorsed by over 50 judges in LA County Superior Court judges. And I think that shows that I have the qualities that Judge Bonner had mentioned earlier, the temperament, the intelligence. These are 50 judges who have known me, who have seen me in court, who I've worked with, some of whom were defense attorneys before they were judges, and that were opposing counsels in cases that I handled. Now, other than the qualities that Judge Bonner mentioned, I think when you're looking at a candidate in any race, whether it's a judicial seat or an elected seat, I think one of the qualities that you want to look for is somebody that actually has the heart to serve the community. And I believe that I have that. And I've demonstrated that throughout my career. I'll start by saying that after 4 years of working civil law, I joined the DA's office because I didn't want to work for corporations. I wanted to work in an environment where I could serve the community, which is why I joined the DA's office. And then in the DA's office, I decided to go to the elder abuse section where I work now because I wanted to serve and protect one of the most vulnerable and underserved segments of our community, and that is our society's elders. Outside of the courtroom, I serve the community by, in my weekends, on my free time, I will go to community centers, senior centers, and I will speak to community members like yourselves about elder abuse awareness and prevention. Just 3 weeks ago, even though I'm in the middle of a campaign, I was training volunteers at the Long Beach women's shelters about how to work with elders who have been the victim of abuse. I also work with children. For the last 8 years, I've gone to elementary schools working with at-risk fifth graders and teaching them about the dangers of gangs and drugs and the importance of staying in school and getting an education. And for the last 8 years, I've also served with the California State Military Reserve. I've been a military lawyer where I provide free legal services to the men and women who serve in our armed forces. Now, I do all of these things not because I think not because I get paid overtime or anything like that, but because I really do believe in serving the community and giving back to the community that's given so much to me and my family. Now, we've heard a lot about the endorsements, and it's important, I think, to look at who's endorsing each candidate because it's impossible for the voters in LA County to go out and do the research on all the candidates here. But the endorsements show that these people, the judges, the 50 judges that have endorsed me, they know us. They've looked into our background. The different organizations that have endorsed us, including I believe I've been endorsed by, I'm Law Enforcement's Choice as well. I've been endorsed by many of the law enforcement organizations that you've heard from here. I've been endorsed. Also, I believe I'm the choice for the legal community. I've been endorsed by several different bar organizations. The election's June 5th. I hope that I can count on your support in this upcoming election. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Cho. And also for number 60 is Ben Coella. Excuse me, Mr. Coella.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ben Coella, and I'm also running for office number 60. I'm very impressed by all of the DAs that are here and the other attorneys who talked about their passion for public service, and that was the reason why I joined the district attorney's office back in 1989. I actually was hired by both the public defender and the district attorney's office, and I chose the district attorney's office based on the fact that I thought I could help more people at one time. My background is not much more different than Mr. Coletta's. My parents are both, they both emigrated from Italy. My dad was actually a survivor in 1956 of the Andrea Doria, which sank off Nantucket Island. And he was able to survive by being rescued by the Ile-de-France. And I was born in New York City, and I lived in Florida. I went to college in Florida, the University of Miami. My degree is in chemistry and biology because my first intention was to become a physician. I love science. After that, I moved to Los Angeles, and I attended Whittier College School of Law. It was a little bit different from science because law is a little bit not as precise as science, where, for example, when we were graded in chemistry lab, you had to have the correct amount in your experiment to the parts per million. So if you were off by 5 millionths, you got a 95. But with law, it's different. It's like depending on how you read the statute, depending on what the facts of the particular case are. So I became fascinated with that. And one of the professors at Whittier College of Law said to me personally, when you're finished with your law degree, just come and join us. We'd like to have you. And so I started in the office. My first 10, 12 years were the usual rotations. You do misdemeanor trials, preliminary hearings, and then you move on to felony trials. So I did that in downtown and also in Van Nuys and some other smaller courts. I won't go into all the details. Then I was sent to a busy metropolitan court, which had a lot of volume. And I began to notice that I was more of a volume person than a single case, because you can hold on to that single case, be it a murder trial or a sex crimes trial, and stick with it for like weeks at a time, and you're focused on that one case. But I was more the kind that wanted to do an overall high volume type of situation, because I was quick to read through facts and be able to determine what was relevant, what wasn't relevant. After that, they needed some attorneys in juvenile court to mentor the younger DAs that were doing their juvenile rotation. So I was sent to Eastlake Juvenile Court. And after 1 year there, I noticed that we had just begun a mental health court. And I patiently waited for the DA in that court to retire because I knew that was what I was very interested in. So I became the prosecutor in the juvenile mental health court. That was one of the only juvenile mental health courts in the entire state and the only full-time juvenile mental health court. And I also spoke and gave lectures on that particular subject. We worked with Dr. David Feinberg, who's was the CEO of UCLA, and prior to that was the neuropsychiatric doctor. And we were able to now combine the science with the law in that children that had been diagnosed with Axis I disorders came to our court. The doctor, who was our consulting physician, would examine the child, and then my call was whether or not this Axis I disorder was legitimate or whether it was something used as an excuse by the defense to try to get the kid off. Because basically, in the mental health court, if you successfully complete the mental health court, which is go through a series of therapies and medication and follow up on school and whatnot, then the case would be dismissed. So some people routed the cases there just to get the case dismissed, even though they were fake illnesses. So working with the doctors in that court, I was able to determine which of these cases was the proper case to hear. And I've been doing juvenile court now since 2004, and it's a passion of mine, because I think if you start young and you try to see what the problem is with the children, that you're able to change that person's life and avoid that person going into the adult system. The other courts I handled in juvenile are the drug court. I'm the exclusive handler of the drug court, where we also have kids that have drug issues. And most of these cases revolve around burglaries and thefts. So they're doing this because there's a drug problem and they're trying to get funds for drugs. Juvenile is a bit different than adult, because we don't have to look at just how many years in prison or what your fine is. We have to look at, is the child doing good at home? Does he have family support? How is the school situation? Is he being bullied? So there's a lot more encompassing that. Also, when you do juvenile court trials, I appreciate your attention. Thank you again, Mr. and Mrs. House. And ladies and gentlemen, I ask for your endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kolela. There's your placard back. Last but not least, we're going to hear from Holly Hancock, who is the third candidate for number 60. And then we're going to go to question time. So get your questions ready. Ms. Hancock.
Thank you, Judge Bonner. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. House. And I've taken a look at Mr. House's background. He has a fascinating background working in South America for a couple of our former presidents. And that's about giving back to the community. And that's what I am about. So
What do I have to offer? I'm going to be a little bit different than everybody here on this panel because I am a deputy public defender, and I have been a deputy public defender for 12 years. And that means that I'm working from the defense side. So why would that make me fair or more fair? Because I posit to you that I am more fair because of the way that I have to work every case. I receive cases from the prosecutors, and then I hear my client's side, and then I know the law. So I have to work within my own setup, my own situation, my own thinking to come up with a plan that's best for the client. And in that way, I am forced to look at both sides of a situation. I'm forced to look at both sides of the law. And I know my law. I have done 55 trials in the last 12 years. At my office, the Office of the Public Defender, we get all the cases. I've done misdemeanors and I've done felonies. In felonies, we get all the cases, everything from drug sales, drug possession, all the way up to murder. I have done all of those kinds of trials. I have about an 80% to 85% success rate. I have won the last 12 trials. I have had 2 trials that were convictions, go up on appeal, and the justices, because of what I argued, the law, at the trial, have reversed and remanded. So I know my law. I would also point out that so for that reason, I just want to cap it by saying I'm coming from a different perspective, but the perspective that I'm coming from forces me to look at both sides, to look at all sides, and to fight for the client. Now, I'd like to be able to, and I'd like to thank you for inviting me into your community, because what I am about is working for the community. Everybody who I represent comes from some community. And guess what? Unless they go away for life, they're going to go back to that community. So my perspective is not just acquittal versus conviction. My perspective is rehabilitation and reconciliation. And I think that's what we need in today's world. I am also a teen advisor for my daughter's group. It's a national group, Jack and Jill. We raise funds for various charities. I have also worked with the Black Public Defenders, raising funds and giving scholarships for the last 10 years to youth to go to college and to other folks to go to law school. I work always to give back to the community. My previous job was as a flight attendant for a major airline. In that regard, I worked as for the union, and I represented the flight attendants. This is what kind of guided me into becoming an attorney. I've always worked for people, and I've always worked for the community. I think this is what I have to offer to you. I hope that I get your vote, and I hope that you'll take a look and think about somebody who's a little bit different and who has been successful in representing people from the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hancock. Okay, so let me thank all the candidates for being here. This is most of the candidates for judicial office. Thank you for being here and making presentations. Okay, here's the fun part. Well, not for them, but the fun part for you is question time. So anybody who'd like to ask a question to any of these candidates, step forward, if you would, to the microphone that's in the middle of this auditorium and address your question to a particular candidate. And if you would, feel free. You don't have to identify yourself. Unless you're a member of the media, then I want you to identify yourself and state what organization you're from. Now, I see our first questioner. I happen to know this is Martha House. Yes, Ms. House.
I don't really have a question. I have a statement. The candidates have literature on both tables, on this side and this side, so if you want to pick up some literature, feel free to do so.
All right, so there's some literature on both these tables here to pick up. Okay, now who wants to step forward and be the first question? Yes? Well, a question or a comment? Yes, we'll take a comment. Although, in general, Your Honor, I prefer questions rather than comments. But we'll allow the judge to make a comment.
Just clarification. I'm Judge Troy. It was mentioned earlier.
We have another mic.
The candidates are assigned a seat number for their candidacy, right? That seat has no physical location, okay? Just to make sure you understand this, because there were some questions earlier. They are elected countywide, and once they are elected, the presiding judge of the court sends them or assigns them to a particular assignment. It could be anywhere between Lancaster, Long Beach, Pomona, or Pomona or Santa Monica. So don't assume that they're going to be sitting anywhere that you might want them to be sitting. That's my comment.
All right, so with that clarification, right, they're probably going to all be sent to family law court anyway, but to start, you know, anyway, okay, so first question. All right, here we go. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Dawn Franks. I live in the city of Compton, and I'm here, and I'm just listening to everyone. And whoever wants to answer the question can, you know, pick it up. One of my concerns coming from community of Compton and also being black, our concerns, we know that blacks have the highest numbers as far as incarceration and disparity levels. And I want to know, as far as you, a lot of you guys come from the background of district attorneys. And so as far as the rehabilitation, I like what Commissioner Durbin said in regards to people not knowing the statutes when they're before the court, and then also the reconciliation and rehabilitation. How can you, in your court, with being fair, because people say that, I want to be really candid and honest with you. That's said, but the numbers are still very high for African Americans that are incarcerated.
That's a great question, and I think the gist of, and it's to the deputy district attorneys here, and I'm going to ask for somebody who might want to answer that question. But basically, you're coming from the district attorney's office. You've been prosecuting cases. If you become a judge, how can we be assured you'll be fair to both sides? And we'll start off with Mr. Berger.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Donna, for making that long journey from Compton to be here today. While I was giving my brief introduction, I probably didn't tell you about all the cases that I've handled.
Now, Mr. Berger,
I'm going to
other people who want to answer
Yes.
it, so answer the question.
Yes.
How can we be assured you will be fair, having spent so many years in the district attorney's office?
The question, I think, had to do with sentencing, particularly with persons of color. Am I right? Thank you. And the answer there is you have to be creative and you have to be careful. Obviously, when you're dealing with persons who've committed violent crime, you have to keep public safety in mind. But you also have to consider whether there is a chance that you can offer a form of rehabilitation. There's no particular skill in warehousing criminals. That's what we do. Our prisons are full of them, and some of them rightly so. But every now and again, I see an individual who offers a sign that they're ready to stop the rotating door of the criminal justice system, and they want a shot, and I'll give them that shot. They'll have probation, they'll have time over their head, and they'll be very strictly monitored. And sometimes they'll prove to the court that they're worthy of rehabilitation. As a judge, I would use those same tools. I would encourage prosecutors to consider that as an option rather than just say state prison. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Mr. Berger. And we have no more than 1 minute here, so go.
I actually worked in Compton for 4 years working domestic violence, sex crimes, and crimes against children. And I think my fellow prosecutors and I can all agree with you that sometimes there are underlying problems that need to be addressed, mental health problems, drug addiction problems. And so yes, as a judge, you absolutely need to consider whether or not there are other problems that are a better solution. Can we get this person into drug rehab so that they're not before us anymore? But I'd also like to point out, and I think it's important to notice, that as a district attorney, for every case that I file, I reject 10 other cases. And that a wide swath of the community. And so I think it's important to note that, you know, for every time that I want to file a case, sometimes I just can't because the evidence isn't there. And so we do a very good job at the district attorney's office evaluating cases and ensuring that we have the most appropriate charges against persons and that we have the evidence before us to prove those allegations.
And I want to get to the next question, but very briefly, Ms. Escalante wanted to respond.
In our courtroom, we have a pilot program called Court to College, and it's really for first-time offenders. We want to give them a chance because we know everybody makes a mistake, and depending on their family support, we will send them to Cerritos College. We have progress reports, and it has been highly successful, and I'm honored to be a part of that pilot program that's moving to other courts.
I forgot to mention Ms. Escalante was rated well qualified by the LA County Bar Association, and I omitted that. Okay, so, sir.
Yes, my name's Henry Pedregon. I'm a deputy probation officer of almost 40 years, strictly the juvenile division. 18 of these years of juvenile court investigator, 10 years of specialized gang unit, 3 years of suitable placement deputy. My question is that one thing that we all cringe upon as deputy probation officers is getting that fitness. When we get that fitness, many times they're high-profile cases, and we are very, very careful, very meticulous about doing our reports. Well, then when the direct filing came in, we got a little breather, because it went straight to the district attorney's office. It didn't go through the
your question is, sir?
My question is, now that we got the transfer of motion, all those cases that were fitnesses are now coming back for reevaluation. Now, my question is, as a probation officer, what are you looking at when we do our evaluation? Are we looking at the time of the crime, of the offense, or are we working what's happened between that time? Because many times these cases are 10, 12 years old, and they've been modeled prisoners, they've been modeled trustees. Where do we do our evaluation?
I've got it. So now you're addressing this to anybody on the panel here? Any
yes.
candidate? Okay. Who wants to try that one? Here we go.
Thank you. I'm presently in the juvenile court. We have a case that came back of a minor who committed a double murder 10 years ago. She was 14. Now she's 24. The law has changed. So now we also have to look at psychosocial factors. Has this person been rehabilitated? And in fact, this particular minor who went to prison for 10 years was actually doing stupendous, and it was a model prisoner. So my court said, barring a genie coming out of a lamp, this particular minor looks like she has been rehabilitated, and we may send her through the juvenile system and terminate the case. So now we're looking at psychosocial factors where we didn't look at that before.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the case.
All right, so next, the next questioner. Thank you, sir, and thank you for your service as a probation officer. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Carmen Estrada. I am an undergraduate student at Cal State Long Beach. First, I'd like to say that it's been a great experience being here. It's my first forum for judicial elections, and I think it's a great opportunity, especially for me as a college student, to understand where everybody's coming from.
And you had a question?
Yes, I do.
All right.
I do have a question. I first would like to ask, I noticed I was taking notes that not all candidates were able to say their LA County Bar rating, and I'd like to see if we can get an opportunity for all those candidates to say their rating.
All right. Let's do that.
Oh, go ahead.
Is that okay? Well, let's do that.
Okay.
That might be your question, actually. But let's just start at the end of the table with Ms. Escalante, who I just said was well qualified by the LA County Bar. But
appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, just state your rating if you understand it.
Thank you. Thank you.
But he was rated not qualified, maybe for not participating. I don't know. Go ahead.
Ben Colella, I was not going to participate, but I did at the last minute, so unqualified.
I may have some contrary information on that, but let's go back. Exceptionally well qualified, Judge Mackey.
Appreciate it.
All right, and I must say, I just have information here. Maybe we should let Mr. Golela respond to it, but is that I have him as not qualified in the rating I received on August 25th from the, oh, did you say not qualified? I'm sorry, sir. I missed it. Okay, now did you have another really short question?
Yes, I did.
Go.
Your Honor, thank you again. I appreciate it. I would like to ask, what's your stance on like outreach when coming to regards to undergraduate students in college or high school? What do you think about having opportunities if you're elected as becoming a judge, of perhaps doing like a mentorship program for high school students or undergraduate students, to have that exposure
Student internship programs if they're elected judges, what do they think? All right,
Correct.
we've got it.
Thank you. Hi, Wendy Siegel. As part of my stalking unit and the drug major narcotics, I have had much community outreach. I've been professor for a day at Cal Poly Pomona, and I've spoken to many domestic violence groups, so I encourage that. I still participate in that anytime that I'm asked to go to speak to college students. I've had college students come intern for me after I speak with them. I'm involved in the teen court program. So as a DA, we get to be proctors, and as a judge, we get to be a judge in the teen court program. And I hope if I'm elected, I hope to continue with my community outreach.
This must be a real softball because everybody wants to answer this question. I'm going to give maybe one or two more a chance. Keep it to about 30 seconds, if you would.
We already have a program for that. We just had a young men's leadership program at the LA Superior Court that I participated in. I was a panelist in it. We also have a young women's leadership conference. It's all, the judges are the ones who actually run it. And we encourage young people to become not only lawyers, but think about a judicial career. So we're already doing that. I've also done that whenever asked by high schools and college classes to come and speak. I've been doing that my entire career. Thank you.
A couple of more, but I want to get on to some substantive questions here. We have another questioner, but 30 seconds.
Very quickly, answer to your question. It's called teen court. You, as a high school student, can sit as a juror listening to real cases that teenagers have suffered. You can decide whether this person is guilty or not guilty. Most high schools have it. If they don't, contact a local judge, start the teen program yourself.
And Mr. Cho, and then
There are lots of programs out there that are available for college students, high school students, law students that are available to where you can get mentorship. It's something that I'm very passionate about. I've worked with several different bar associations, mentoring law students and college students over the years. And just yesterday, I was at a high school at a law day program where I was helping high school students as they had questions about choosing a career in law. So it's something that I hope to continue if elected.
and last but not least, Ms. Annika Valier-Cole.
Thank you, Your Honor. I actually worked with a program called MOST that Wendy Siegel volunteered as a mentor. I started as a mentor and I moved on to the executive board as membership chair. It was my job to recruit mentors, train them, and match them with girls from the middle school. We then developed a program following those girls into high school. And part of our experience is taking them through the judicial system. And so I encourage everyone, as a temporary judge for the LA Superior Court, to ask for help and ask for direction. There is help there, and we're here to serve you.
Thank you. Okay, next questioner. By the way, feel free to direct a question to a candidate if you wish, or if you want to ask a general question, I'll try to make sure we have someone to answer. But go ahead, sir.
Justice and the law are not always on speaking terms. Slavery was legal at one point. And in the current political climate, you know, all the way from the top of the White House, where independent counsels are getting fired and being pressured.
Yeah, I need a question.
Well, it's coming
I don't need a speech here. I need a
It's
question,
not
sir. If you don't have a question, then I'm moving to the next question.
I have a question.
All right.
But I need to set up the context. In the current political climate, there is political pressure for judges and attorneys to act politically. Now you guys are being elected and you're flaunting your endorsements. The question is, how do we keep the bench from being politically neutral and not be beholden to political interests?
Okay, good question. Who wants to take on keeping the bench out of politics, and objective?
Good question. As a judge, we are required to enforce the law fairly, objectively, with integrity. If we do not, you as the voter can hold us accountable at the end of our 6-year term, number one. Number two, we all have a conscience, and we all know the appellate court is going to review every decision potentially that is not in conformance with the law. No matter whether we follow it or not, someone's going to call us out on it, and someone should. So with that, I think the quality control and the quality assurance behind a bench officer is what we do day in, day out. Every word we say, everything we do is scrutinized. An opponent on one side or the other is going to take us up. There's only going to be one person that wins when it comes to a decision in court. And when a party doesn't win, I assure you, they're going to scrutinize every word we say and everything we do with regards to being fairly and objectively and transparently applying the law to the facts that come before us. And I think that is the gravamen of what you're looking for. And again, the accountability is back to the voter. We don't have a life term. It's a 6-year term.
Next question. By the way, there is a code of judicial ethics that all judges are expected to comply with, and that would be never to consider politics or political factors in making any judicial decision. If you have any concerns about a candidate in that regard, vote for the other person. Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Stephen Blagden, La Habra Heights. Thanks to the houses for putting this on. When you look at civil case summaries, it seems like the cases go on and on, delays, continuances. If you feel that's a problem, what would you do to solve it?
All right. I think Judge Mackey might be good to address that. He's been on the civil court.
Yes, the solving cases is we give time constraints. You can't go on and on. There's a lot of fraud in civil cases, legitimate cases with fraud, and that's our job, is to distinguish it. You set time limits. You have so much time, speak to the jury, and to argue your case. Other than that, go with your case. But the judge has to control. He's the controlling. I'm the referee up there, and I have to decide what's good and what's bad, and I have to call the shots. So that's how we do it.
Okay. So let's call on one other person, or maybe two, to address that. But how would you, let's get the question, how would you speed up the processing of cases in the civil courts of the LA County Superior Court?
So Michael Rubens, I am a civil litigator, as before, and I agree with Judge Mackey. It's about managing the calendars. You have to have the time constraints on the litigants to move the cases forward. In addition, there are pre-trial procedures that are available to litigants to dispose of cases in certain circumstances. And I can tell you from my experience, that is vitally important as a judge running your calendar. You need to move the cases along as expeditiously as possible. You don't want them lingering for years on end. You want the attorneys moving their discovery forward and meeting those deadlines. So through case management conferences and orders, we can speed those cases up and keep the attorneys moving it forward and avoiding the delays. Delays need to be justified with real reasons, not just the attorney wanted to go on a vacation, for example. So it really is case management and your case management orders that move them forward.
All right. Very briefly, Ms. Cole, how would you manage civil cases and move them forward more expeditiously?
My experience as a temporary judge, specifically with unlawful detainers, is that a lot of the litigants are self-represented and don't really know what the issue really is before them. They have maybe not used the mediation program, and so what I do is I bring litigants in, explain to them who I am, and what we're really going to decide. What is that issue? For example, litigants may come in and say, he can't evict me because it's not a habitable residence. When I explain to him that maybe the defense to the amount of money that may be awarded to them or not they are ordered to pay, but not to the issue of unlawful proceedings and a judgment of property, then we can speed the calendar up. So it's explaining to those who are involved what's at issue and moving the calendar along.
Good. Well, it's good that nobody recommended abolishing jury trials in civil cases, but all right, sir, next question.
Yeah, hi, Glenn Shepard, La Habra Heights. I thank all the candidates for being here.
Proposition 47, 57, AB 109, all of these initiatives and legislation was to clean out prisons, reduce the federal pressures on the prison system. They cleared out a lot of people who may not have or should not have been cleared out. Now there is an initiative being circulated, 14-0044, which redefines some what are now misdemeanors back to felonies for certain release purposes. I'd like to ask a few of the candidates, what's their position on that initiative? Should we tighten up case law or whatever, administrative function on releasing prisoners who have raped, and that's just one example.
All right, I get the gist of it. It's a little bit off for somebody running for a judgeship, but the question generally is, does somebody want to comment on this issue of AB 47, AB 109? Well, we do have somebody that's going to comment. All right.
Well, specifically, you were asking about sex crime individuals, and obviously, since I work in sex crimes, that's the best place for me. And by the way, Emily Spear. I did have significant concerns about the release of 290 registrants. Considering my work working in child molesters, serial rapists, those types of things, that yes, I do believe that some legislation should be written. It was promised by Governor Brown that it would be covered, that 290 registrants wouldn't be available for early release, and that just did not happen. So I do support legislation that would fix releasing child sex offenders, adult sex offenders early. I don't think that they should be considered. I absolutely support programs that support persons that to release them early, to get them into help, to get them into mental health programs and into drug rehab programs. But I don't think that our 290 registrants should be part of that particular group.
I just want to say that Mr. Berger is pointing out that Canon 5B, the Code of Judicial Ethics, would indicate that, and this is generally true of your questions, that no candidate here should be asked how they would decide a specific case. And it's possible that issues that you're raising could come up before candidates as judges. So I am going to, I know Ms. Escalante might want to speak to this, but I'm going to rule that question sort of out of order, sir. I'm sorry. It's a good question. It's a good question for anybody that's running for the Assembly or the State Senate, that can change the law in that way. All right.
Just be careful when you vote on a ballot initiative, because some of them are named Safe Streets and School Act, and they're very misleading. For the busy person that just runs in the ballot box, that has released a lot of repetitive criminals back into the community, and crime rate has gone up. So just make sure you read the ballot, the whole initiative, before you vote, and that will save a lot of problems than having to petition and bring it back before the voters.
That seems to me wise advice. Yes, ma'am. Could you come down and maybe, or? Okay, well, say your question, I'll try to repeat it.
Okay. We've heard about qualified, well qualified, exceptional qualified. What are the criteria for those? Because I've seen some not qualified or well qualified that, kind of turns my...
Yeah. Yeah, that's, okay, so she's asking basically, how does the LA County Bar Association go about determining and making its ratings? First of all, it's established a judicial evaluation committee of the LA County Bar. It's made up mainly of lawyers that, by the way, take their job seriously, and I think it could be 15 or 20. They typically invite the candidates in for interview. They interview them, they do some due diligence on their background. But there can be a lot of reasons and varied reasons why the ratings come out the way they do. But one thing we'll do, for anybody interested, if they'd let me know or Martha House, we'll make available to you the criteria that the LA County Bar Association says they use in making these ratings. It's about a 6 or 7 page document, and I can send it to you by email. You can read it. Now, I don't know that there's anybody else here. If there's anybody that's been on the LA County Bar Association's Judicial Evaluation Committee, I'll let them speak to that question. But okay, we have somebody who does have an answer that did not get a very good rating from the County Bar Association, but go ahead, Mr. Keller.
Thank you. So the LA County Bar Association is not a legal entity, it's just a club for lawyers. But I will say the following. There are subcommittees. There are 3 subcommittees of about 10 people each. So no subcommittee reviews more than one candidate for a particular seat. So if I'm seat number 60, you have 3 groups of 10 people for each candidate. So clearly, some subcommittees are more particular than others. And because you have different subcommittees due to their requirements and their procedures, you're never going to have a consistent rating between candidates in the same office. 3 subcommittees, 3 different standards. So it's really, hate to say it, but it's a personality contest. Thank you.
Yeah. You know, and the issue here too is, look, I think the LA County Bar Association, it's a voluntary association of lawyers that are in the bar. They're familiar with the judges. They try to be familiar. They try to be conscientious. And generally speaking, people that get good ratings from the LA County Bar Association, they think it's a good, appropriate system. And the ones that don't tend to, you know, think it's maybe a private club. But I see Judge Rawl. Yeah. Judge Troy.
One thing I should point out is if each candidate who receives a less than exceptionally well qualified rating has a right to appeal that low rating and go through the regular appellate process for the LA County Bar Association.
Okay, so take it for what it's worth, but I certainly invite you to learn more about it, because the people that know most about judges or potential judges tend to be lawyers, because they're all, you know, they do try to do, I think, a reasonably decent job, but they're not perfect either. Okay, yes, ma'am, you have a question.
I'm Susan Shelley from the Los Angeles Daily News, and this is a question for Judge Mackey, if he would like to answer it. Can you tell us a little bit more about why you think you've been challenged, and do you feel that there's an issue of intimidation of judges?
Sorry.
She asked you, why do you think you're being challenged, and is there a risk of intimidating sitting judges by challengers, I guess, getting on the ballot to oppose them?
Yes. I granted, I'm talking about $1 million cases, 89 million, granted a new trial, went all the way to the Supreme Court, upheld me, granting a new trial. I felt that that was punitive damages were $80 million in that case. The Supreme Court said, let's look at a ratio between the certain damages and punitive damages and set a whole new standard. That's one of the problems. So anything else?
Well, why is this guy running against you, Judge?
Why is he running against me?
I mean, if you want to
Yes.
answer that.
Okay. Why is he running against me? It costs just $2,000 to file. You get a lot of publicity. You get to go all over the county. But my record, I have a good record, and I stand on my record. The judges are supporting me. Supreme Court justice is supporting me. Appellate Court justice is supporting me. Chief of Police, Beck, supporting me. I have, if you look at my webpage, Mackey, the letter, the number 4 for judge, you'll see a whole series of people, endorsements, newspapers. So I stand on my record.
And I might note your opponent's not here. He's not told us why he thinks you shouldn't be reelected, and he's been rated by the LA County Bar Association as not qualified to be a judge. But okay, I think you answered the question.
And that not qualified means the candidate lacks one or more of the qualities of professional ability, experience, competence, integrity, and temperament indicative of fitness to perform the judicial function satisfactorily. That's the basis.
According to the LA County Bar Association, one of those factors is applicable to a non-qualified candidate. All right, so now other questions? Anybody else? Going once? Oh, almost. But we have the final, two final questions.
Thanks.
But if you could just ask a question, be great.
Yes. Citizens are protected by the Brown Act, the Open Meeting Law, and the Public Records Act. What are your thoughts in looking at cases of those types as far as protecting citizens' rights in their government?
See, I think that just gets into that canon of ethics. I used to be the chair of the California Commission on Judicial Performance, and you know, if a sitting judge was commenting, and somebody running for office commenting on how they would, let's say, how they would view the Records Act or something like that, I just don't think they should do it. So I'm not going to ask them to answer that. Next question.
Good afternoon, and again, thank you for being here. My one question is, I see that most are attorneys or commissioners on it, but to run, obviously, just to become an elected official is something, or being a candidate and being in front of the community and to get voted on. If there is one word you can describe on what it is that drove you to be a judge, what would it be? And this question would go to everyone.
I love that question. That's a good final question. And I'm going to ask just this. She's asking for one word.
One word.
That would just, no, I'll start from with Ms. Escalante down there. One word that describes what? Why they're inspired to be Superior Court judges, right? Okay, Ms. Escalante. All right.
Alfred Coletta, integrity.
Sydney Michelle, inclusion.
Wendy Siegel, impartiality.
Ben Colella, fairness.
Been there, done that, 39 years, 19 years as an attorney, representing the people.
A little more than one word, but nonetheless, I think the point is taken. Sir.
Tony Cho, service.
Danielle Gibbons, unbiased.
Stephen Schreiner, experience.
Troy Davis, fairness.
Ken Fuller, justice.
Armando Duron, justice.
Holly Hancock, dedication.
Javier Perez, justice.
Patty Hunter, justice.
Okay, you heard it. I think justice won out, but there were some other good reasons given as well. So, look, I want to thank all of you for coming and for your participation. I want to thank the candidates. Special thanks to the houses. And let me say, this concludes, except that Charles may have the last word here, but this otherwise concludes this year's Judicial Forum, subject to Charles wrapping this up.
Thank you very, very much. Was this worth your while? It was intended to be mutually beneficial, and I believe it is. And I just want to thank Judge Robert Bonner, because he could be he's a very, very busy person. He's a highly sought-after speaker, and he deserves a round of applause.
I, too, have a wrap-up statement. I'd like to thank Melissa from Mount San Antonio College for videotaping this forum, and it will be on YouTube for everybody to review, so you can do your own homework. And remember, folks, this primary ballot is going to be a book. Trying to get a hold of these people, I had to run through 27 candidates just for governor. So do your homework. These people are very important. Thank you.
Thank all of you once again.
We stand adjourned.